Okay, imagine for a second, what if you could bottle up all the wisdom, all the experience of your best employees, and feed it directly into your company's systems? Well, today we're diving into a groundbreaking new way to use AI to do exactly that. We're talking about a framework that helps us understand how a business really runs, not just how the data says it runs.
Every organization on the planet runs on data. But what if that data is only telling you half the story? Or worse, what if it's kind of lying to you? What if all those logs from your IT systems are missing the most important stuff? The context, the nuance, the real story of how work actually gets done. That's the huge problem we're digging into today. So, let's start right there with the core problem. For years, companies have been trying to map out how they operate using what basically amounts to an incomplete and often a really misleading map. There's a whole field dedicated to this called process discovery, and the goal sounds pretty straightforward, right? You just take all the digital breadcrumbs your systems leave behind, every single click, every transaction, every form entry, and you try to automatically build a flowchart that shows how your business actually functions from A to Z. But here's the catch, and this diagram shows it perfectly. Think of the actual process, everything that really happens, the good, the bad, the ugly, as that big circle P. Well, the data log, that's L, is just a small slice of it. It captures some stuff, sure, but it misses a ton. So when you go and build a model, M, using only that incomplete data, you're building on a really shaky foundation. And that brings us to the missing piece of the puzzle. It's probably the single most valuable asset most companies have, but they completely ignore it because it never ever shows up in a data log. And that missing piece? It's human knowledge. It's the gut feeling of your veteran employees, the ones who have been around the block. They know all the clever workarounds, they know the unwritten rules, and they sure as heck know the difference between how a process looks on paper versus how it actually works on a chaotic Tuesday afternoon. I mean, it's an incredibly valuable asset, right? So why have we struggled for so long to get this wisdom into our systems and our models? Well, it's because that knowledge is trapped. It's stuck in conversations, in old training manuals, in decade-old email chains. It's unstructured, it's messy, it's just plain English. And for a computer that only understands rigid formal logic, trying to translate all that human nuance has always been this giant roadblock. Until now. All right, now we get to the breakthrough. This is how these researchers built a bridge to get across that roadblock, using AI as the architect. And the core idea is actually pretty simple and elegant. They decided to use a large language model, yep, the same kind of tech behind things like ChatGPT, to act as a super intelligent universal translator between human wisdom and computer logic. And here's the three-step dance. First, an expert just describes a rule like they're talking to a new coworker. Second, the LLM listens in, and it translates that casual, natural language into a formal, structured rule a computer can actually understand. And third, the system takes both the original data log and this brand new expert-provided rule and uses them together to build a way, way more accurate model of the process. But it's more than just a simple one-way translation. No, the real power here comes from the fact that this is an interactive collaboration. It's a conversation. So an expert might say something that makes perfect sense to you and me, like validating an application occurs at most 2 times. Seems simple enough, right? Well, for a machine, a statement like that can actually be surprisingly ambiguous. And this is where the magic really happens. A dumber AI might just fail or make a really bad guess, but this LLM is smart enough to know what it doesn't know. It recognizes, hey, I don't have a pre-built rule for at most 2, so it actually starts a conversation. It asks for clarification, turning a simple translation task into a real collaborative dialogue. It's amazing. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but the real question, does it actually work? Let's take a look at the case study and see how this whole framework performed on a complex, messy, real-world process. So the test was with the Dutch Employee Insurance Agency, UWV. And look, we're not talking about a small, clean data set here. This involved almost 150,000 cases and over 1.3 million individual events. I mean, this is the very definition of a large-scale, messy, real-world operation. The first model, the one built using just the data, It was, frankly, a mess. It was confusing, but way more importantly, it had a critical flaw. It actually created pathways that allowed a rejected insurance claim to be handled as if it were an accepted one. That's not just a minor error. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of how the business is supposed to work. But then, after the LLM translated the expert's feedback into formal rules, the new model was completely transformed. It became logical, it became accurate, and crucially, it correctly separated the process flows for accepted and rejected claims. For the first time, the model actually reflected reality. The researchers also tested different AIs to see which one was the best translator, and the results are pretty fascinating. After giving them just a few examples to learn from, that's a technique called few-shot prompting, the top models were absolute superstars. Just look at that recall score of 0.98. That means if an expert stated a rule, the AI correctly identified what they were talking about 98% of the time. It almost never missed a trick. And the precision score, around 0.76, that means when the AI did propose a translation, it was the right one more than 3/4 of the time. This is incredibly high performance for such a complex task. So, what's the big picture here? What does all this mean for the future of how businesses operate, how they improve, and how they get smarter? The single most important takeaway is this. This is not about AI replacing human experts. It's about creating a true partnership, a human-in-the-loop system, where AI acts as a powerful amplifier for human knowledge, making that expertise scalable and machine-readable for the very first time. And this matters a lot. It means companies can finally create process models they can actually trust. It unlocks decades of institutional knowledge that, until now, was just trapped in people's heads. And it creates this amazing continuous feedback loop, where processes can be constantly refined and made smarter over time. We're moving beyond just analyzing data to truly understanding the context behind it. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Think about your own organization, your own team. If you had an AI that could perfectly translate all the unwritten rules, all the secret workarounds that your most experienced people know by heart, what hidden flaws would you finally be able to see? And what would you do with that wisdom?